What if the one thing that was meant to break you had the power to help someone else to survive? Welcome to Healing Through Chaos, the podcast where pain is transformed into purpose through powerful storytelling. It's the one place that you'll find licensed professionals and survivors meet at the same table to talk lived experience and expertise. I'm your host, John Tay, and this is where your healing journey begins. On today's episode, we talk identity, healing, and mental health with author and energetic and emotional translator, Miss Harjeet. Welcome, Miss Harjeet.
Hi, thanks for having me, Shante.
Thank you so much for being here. Are you ready to get into today's conversation?
I'm ready to get into it.
Perfect. So before stepping into this role, who were you behind the scenes and what did life look like during those seasons when you were still searching for the answers?
Oh, that's such a deep and thoughtful question because we don't generally tap into ourselves and who we were before we become, right? So I feel like every day is a journey for me, and I'm always reflecting on who I was and who I am now. And what I liked about who I was and what I want to still keep about who I was. I used to have a very terrible temper when I was little. I've heard stories of how I gave my brother a black eye and I bit my cousin on the cheek. So I was quite a little firecracker. And then I discovered language. Once I discovered words, I was called the trumpet because I wouldn't stop talking. And listening has been something that active listening is something that I've had to learn too. And I don't think it's a skill that we just have automatically. Maybe some people do, I don't know. But I know for me, it was something that I had to really work on. I'm always watching these videos and I think, oh, that's interesting. I'm learning about how people listen and how people respond. So I'm always trying to grow into somebody that I want to be around. So before I became who I am today, I used to be still can be, very uncomfortable in social situations. I didn't really want to go to high school. I had a love of learning. I like to read my books. I like to do brain teasers and puzzles and mind benders and grow my IQ in a sense. That's why I was loving all these challenges. And then school came along and it was just like, oh, it's not so much fun learning in a group environment because not that everybody learns at a different pace, but I don't know if it's for everybody, but I feel like for me personally, I can learn better when it's one on one because I get to ask questions. I don't see things as black and white. And this is what I learned about myself. I see everything as gray because everybody has a different perspective. But when I was younger, I only saw my perspective, and it was just like, I don't understand the question because there's so many ways to look at it, and I don't know what answer you want from me. So going to high school was quite a challenge because the questions that we're asking, some people might find them silly questions. I never refrained from asking questions. I always try to push myself past my comfort zone. I challenged myself to be comfortable when I was uncomfortable. So my nervous system is wreaking havoc. Oh my God, you're around people, you can't do this, and you're very conscious. I used to blush a lot, which I've tapered down a little bit. Makeup helps as well with that. But I used to, yeah, have this nervous system overload, but I used to push myself through it with my thoughts. I would settle myself down. Not everybody's in their head looking at you and critiquing you like you are doing. So I would get comfortable, and I pushed myself so much that it's still uncomfortable for me today to be in social environments. But one thing I'm very mindful of is not editing myself. I just try to be authentic, which is a conversation we had earlier. And I think that's something that I've always been frivolous with my character. I don't care how I'm being perceived because your perception of me, it might not be the truth of who I am. And I'm not a people pleaser, never was. But that term's thrown around like we're all people pleasers, and I disagree because I'm definitely not. And yeah, so that's who I am a bit behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for sharing with our audience because I identified with that as well. Growing up, I was the one that was always asking the hard questions. And then when I got in my 20s, I felt so ashamed of asking all those hard questions because sometimes when you do ask those hard questions, it does make people feel uncomfortable because you're technically sometimes addressing the elephant in the room. But
Mhm.
slowly and surely, I felt my voice being taken away from me. So once I got in my 30s and after I became a mother, I said, I have to show my daughter how to maintain her voice. So I went back to being that person I was as a kid, asking the tough questions. And sure enough, I've lost a lot, like friends, scholarships, things like that in the process. But I'm now more confident and comfortable with myself because I'm not afraid to ask those hard questions and step out there and just be myself, because I identify with that weirdness too, of not necessarily wanting to be in those big circles, but actually wanting to go to school and get your education. And those were the things that I was focused on in high school, because I grew up being bullied and things like that while I was in school. But I knew I wanted to expand my IQ and challenge myself. So that's another thing. I went through that nervous system completely crashing as well, just by pushing through and pretty much silencing myself through my 20s. And now I'm still going through that process as well, of getting back to being confident and healing that nervous system. So thank you for sharing with our audience on that one, because I totally identify with it as well. So you describe yourself as an emotional and energetic translator. What does that title mean to you, and how did you realize that this was the work you were called to do?
Oh, wow, gosh, I've had so many life experiences and I've had to push through them. And I don't compare what I go through with what other people go through, because I know some people have it worse, some people have it better. But it's not fair for me to compare to somebody else because that's their journey, right? So somebody might not have any food, like their mother might not be able to afford any food. And that's not a situation I've ever been in. So I couldn't compare, right? I'm grateful that I've never been in that situation, but I would never try to compare myself to other people. And I recognize that I watch a lot of these spiritual videos, and I've read a lot of books about self-help books. I've read a lot of them, and I've watched a lot of movies as well. And in addition to my life experiences, I felt like there is not really, you can have a social worker and they're trained to respond a certain way, but I want to have authentic conversations with people. I want people to break out of their shells and just say everything that's real. Step into your thoughts. And the only way you can step into your thoughts, for me personally, is by speaking. A lot of people can be visual thinkers, and I recognize that as well. A lot of people can heal through movement. I know personally I heal through sharing and speaking out loud, writing, and that self reflection. And so I'm not trying to attract people that heal the same way I do, because I want to speak to people that are visual thinkers as well, because at the same time, I'll be learning. Because if they are visual thinkers, I would speak in terms of visualize this and visualize that. And I just feel like emotions can be pushed under the rug. And as a woman, we can be so abundant in emotions. Hormonally, we have emotions, but from little, and boys too, but I think boys they're wired very differently. It's not just the environment that tells them not to cry, kind of thing. I think they are wired differently, because I've had boys and I have a girl as well. And I do notice like how we as women, we are so in tune with our emotions, but I feel like society doesn't accept emotions as something that we should be talking about. But I went to counseling, and you're a counselor, and they talk about, you should talk about how I feel sad and this makes me feel sad and how it makes you feel. But then I've grown up in a world where people aren't in touch with their emotions. So this is not, I learned how to communicate my feelings, and people don't understand it, because they, even though I say I feel sad, they hear you're making me sad. You're making me sad. That's what they hear. So you can't change what a person hears from the language that we use. You just have to recognize that everybody's going to receive you differently because of how they're wired, right? I just noticed that there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of work for people, and I feel sometimes what they can do is they can push their perspective on them. You need to do this, you need to write an action plan, you need to do this, you need to do this. And my goal is trying to listen to them and trying to work with them and their scenario and their situation. I have been, one of my friends, she said that I sound cold and clinical, like a counselor or a lawyer, like void of emotions. And she's probably right, because if somebody says to me, oh, I went through this, like if they're really sad and it's really fresh, like my heart will ache for them, of course, because I don't feel that it's fair that people should have to suffer.
Uh-oh, it went dead. Uh-oh.
having so many emotions and knowing the language to communicate emotions and recognizing that people don't communicate in emotions. They feel emotions and they just act on them, responsive and not reactive, not to respond at all, right? My body can do the talking. So if somebody's I find like I am very spiritual, but I'm also religious in a sense that I think religious is about community and spirituality can be very isolating because it's about work on, and religion, it's about accepting others and being part of a whole. So I think we need a balance of both. And just, I have my faith and I do believe in the greater power that exists for all of us because we're all from it. That's my belief. But some people don't believe in that, right? They just believe in the brain and what the brain is capable of. And I accept people's views, and so that's when I speak to somebody, it's not about what I think, it's not about what I feel for you. It's about I'm going to push you to tell me what you think is going to work for you, and I'm going to drop a few ideas there that you maybe haven't thought about, just to get your cogs going in your mind and open you up. Don't close the door on opportunities. And a lot of time I find we can be our own worst enemy, right? We'll say, oh, I don't have enough time to go to the gym. Hold on, tell me about your day. What do you do in your days, right? Are you spending time on your phone? It's not that you don't have time, it's about what you prioritize in your time, right? And we're humans and we're wired to be, we want to be comfortable, but we also want connection, right? Working on ourselves is the hardest thing to do. I've questioned everything from childhood, and it's just like you're pushing me to do things when I'm in a place of hurt. I don't heal by focusing on my hurt. I heal by helping other people through their hurt. I don't want people to hurt. I don't want to be a hero in a sense. I don't want people to hurt so I can save them. But I know that people are struggling and I want to focus on that. But in my language, I come across as lacking empathy, but it's more like I'm going to give you practical solutions, things that you can incorporate in your day. Because as women, we can respond to our emotions, and to focus on something when we are emotionally overwhelmed is so difficult. And that's why I think men are better as being fathers, because they, not that they lack empathy, but their empathy cord is a little different to ours. They could clean the whole house, cook, and the kids, they won't be thinking like, are the kids, are they fed? They won't be thinking like that as women constantly do. That's why we are given the gift of bearing a child, because from the moment the baby's in our womb, we're just already thinking about, what am I eating? What am I feeling? How am I affecting this little being just by existing? What am I listening to? We're so conscious about what we do because we've got a little person growing inside of us. So I think that it's been something I've been called to based on my life experience and everything that has come my way. Not that I've sought out information, it's just come to me sometimes. Like you just happened to come to me. And it's just like these things aren't coincidences to me.
And I love how you explain that because, again, if you know me, I love the lived experience professional. I love a person that's literally taking their journey and turning it into a purpose of helping others. And you hit on a great aspect when it comes to social workers and counselors because they're bound by ethics. So they kind of have to follow a script. Whereas in your field, you're able to get that down to that root cause and connect with them on that vulnerable level and offer those real tips from your personal experiences and just from the things that you learned in life, how ethics codes can actually hold professionals back in a certain way because it kind of hinders you from providing that service that your clients actually need. And also another great point that you made is the difference in between women emotions and men's emotions, because as you said, in therapy they teach you speak your mind, get it out there, but just as soon as you get it out there, what's the actual reaction from the world? And see, that is where a lot of people are starting to turn away from counseling, because it's like I'm telling the world about me, but now I'm being joked on and now I'm being picked on, so what's next? So
Mm.
that's a great aspect that you brought up because I'm seeing it constantly every single day. And honestly and truly, to my therapists and my social workers out there, that's exactly why people are walking away from therapy or don't make it to that fourth therapy visit, because it's literally of you're telling them to go out there and do something they've never done before, and they're being constantly rejected on it, and you don't have those tips or not necessarily giving out those tips on how to help them stand firm in who they're truly becoming. Because again, you brought up that purpose of literally religion and spirituality, and that was a great conversation as well, because I agree, spirituality is that working on self. And when you work on self, it eventually leads you to purpose, which is the religious part of being in a community and helping others. How can you get to that point if you're not working on self? Go do your breathing work, write some things down, and it's just, okay, I'm doing all that, I'm getting my emotions out there, but I'm still being rejected. In reality, I want to. So that was all great information that you just gave, and I've seen it for myself. That's the real reason why people are switching over to this field, because you're able to give out those real life tips and not necessarily something that's in the code of ethics. And I love that. So now, your journey also includes, as you've been talking about this entire time, trauma, domestic abuse, parental alienation, alcohol, systematic barriers, and navigating a mental health diagnosis, which is all hard to talk about. Looking back, what was the turning point that shifted you from surviving to questioning everything?
Oh wow, it's very, all your questions have depth to them, right? So, what was the turning point for me? I think everything has a chance to be a turning point. It's just how you perceive situations and circumstances and events. And I remember, it's not one of my earliest memories, but it was a life-changing moment for me when I was 16. My cousin, who I just recently met, was also 16, and she lived a 3 hour drive away from us. So we didn't get to communicate because that was back in the day when we didn't have cell phones either. Cell phones were available, but we had to be older to get them. So we didn't really communicate like all the time, and we didn't have email, but I had a connection with her when I met her. Not only was she beautiful, she had this amazing voice. And I just remember like how much heart she had when she sang, and just like how funny she was when we would hang out. We only hang physically, we were together for a very short period of time. And then she started dating somebody that was from my side of town. And she said, "Can I tell my mom that I met him through you?" And I said, "That's fine. I trust your judgment. And I'm here to support you, right? Because you're like my cousin, you're my sister. And I support you and I trust you." And then she was coming to my side of town, Birmingham, to come and see him. And she called me when she was in town to come and see me. And I was so in my college with all my college friends. And I remember exactly, we were on the bus, we were going ice skating. And I was so involved in being social with all of them that I just didn't even answer her call. I didn't think about her. I was thinking about me, and I was thinking it's okay, she'll be fine. I wasn't thinking, I didn't have that empathy in a sense. And then I don't know if it's a couple of days later or a week later, I got a call, and it was her boyfriend, and he was crying, and he said, "Did you hear about your cousin?" And I said, "No, what?" She had passed away. And I was just taken aback, like, how could that even happen? She wasn't in my physical space, so it didn't affect me like it was somebody in my physical space. I was so young as well, 16, and it's like I don't really understand this, what's going on. And then to boot, her mother called my dad and said, "Can you please bring your daughter to the funeral?" Because her daughter, my cousin, had talked about me and said that I was like her best friend. She had best friended me. And there you go. And her best friend had decided to reject her call. And I always feel like if I would have answered that call, if I would have made time for her, things could have been different. But I don't live with regrets. I went to the funeral and I saw her, and I released my pain, and I see it as a turning point for me. So every decision I make, like now my brother, for example, he's in South Korea, and he'll call and I'll be busy with my children, or I'll be in the middle of something. If I'm not in the mood to answer, or I just can't answer because I'm tied up, whatever, I'll always make a point to message him to make sure everything's okay, because I don't want to make that mistake. I just question, am I going to regret this if I don't go see my parents today? If I'm feeling something for my parents and I don't send them that text, am I going to regret it? And there's a lot of times, there's lots of things that could be avoided. And if I've got something positive to say to someone, I'll just send my friend a message randomly saying, "I'm thinking about you." It's not for anything. And you don't need to tell me how you're doing. I'm not checking in. You can share with me. I'm just letting you know that you're in my thoughts. And so I'm very mindful now about making sure people know that I'm not always physically present, and I'm not always mentally available or emotionally available, but I'm always there. And so I have this connection with my friends now. I tell them, my girlfriends especially, I said, "I never want you to feel like you're going through things alone." And it's hard to talk to yourself about how you feel. We want a soft space for our emotions to land, right? I'm lucky that people feel when they talk to me that I'm a judgment free zone, which is great because I feel like it's a very judgmental society that we're in. So I want them to be able to just hear themselves, talk it out, reflect on what they're saying, because it's different when you process it, speaking it out, than you do holding it in. And so I've learned a lot about this, having lost my cousin then. It does make me recognize that there's so much to life, and it's not so much is about make it all about yourself, don't care what people, be unapologetically yourself, and that's true, but you do have to be mindful of how we make other people feel, like how we make them feel. And sometimes they don't feel necessarily, but how they think. If a person is in this shame void and you are doing things that are shameful to them, they're going to judge you, but that's okay. Just be mindful. That's not a bad thing. It's just that that's how they've been raised, and that's ingrained in them, right? So just don't try to make a point of minimizing your shameful behaviors around that person, to respect their judgments, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? So I'm quite mindful like that, but sometimes I have been unapologetically myself in the past.
And my dad passed away when I was 15 years old. And literally the night he passed, a few hours before that, I told him I hated him. And just imagine waking up at 4 o'clock later on that next early morning and that person not being here. So I carried, my dad has been gone for 21 years now. And I've carried that with me for a very long time. And so I became that friend who I didn't care if I was in the middle of sleep, I would wake up and answer the phone. If you texting me, I'm immediately texting back. Because of that situation I went through with my dad, I blamed myself. I said, am I the reason why he passed away? And then I had to go to therapy and eventually heal from that, because it is your fault that it happened.
Yeah.
One of those moments of where you were, again, just enjoying your life, enjoying yourself, and things happen and it makes you look back. But that's a great point that you made of how it does change how you show up after that. And it changed me as well, and how I show up. I can still remember getting a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and just getting off at 10, and I'm up and I'm answering the phone, and I'm still like that for certain people. But thank you for sharing that with our audience, because I also have a background of doing the same thing. So this is why I had to come on, y'all. So now, you often say emotions are signals rather than problems. Can you unpack that idea and explain how that perspective changed your relationship with yourself?
Yeah, what emotions are felt in the body, right? Whether it's crying, it's in the eyes, right? Whether it's the nervous system where your stomach is feeling funny, that's because there's something that we don't know. They say that your gut has an instinct, right? Especially for women, like our heart, we have a brain, and then we have our heart, and we have a stomach. What goes on in your body? Do you get tense and you feel like, because men handle it, my belief, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but based on my people studying and my reading and all of that stuff, my belief is that men handle their emotions different, and they're very physically, and society is built for men. Even toothpaste, it's made for male saliva, I heard. So it's a very patriarchal society, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But women, as women, we have to be aware of that, because male society is projecting on women that we need to be the same as them. And the beauty of women is that we're not the same. And that's the beauty, because we balance each other out when we work together, right? We're not aware of movement. We're just aware of feelings, and our feelings are so big. We have tantrums, we get angry, we cry, but we don't understand what's going on. And it's all our environment that shapes us, right? So if we cry and then people just look at you funny, or they tell you to stop crying, you carry that. And then you recognize, oh, all this time I've avoided crying because it's never been safe to cry. I've never felt safe enough, or I don't trust enough that I can actually break down in front of somebody else my emotions for myself. Be an adult, stop talking, stop being a dreamer, stop doing this, and stop. And it's hindered my growth in a sense with my emotions, but it's also really helped me, and it's navigated me to the point that I'm at now. Yeah.
Problems. Yeah. So you were answering it.
Yeah, so that's basically it. I kind of had to find a balance to exist in society, because not everybody is judgmental. And even when a person is judgmental, it's their environment that shaped them, right? And we're all being shaped by our environment. So I always try to go places that put me outside of my comfort zone. I recognize that it might not be conducive I feel like, oh, I'm in a room full of negative people. They're all negative Nellies complaining about how hot it is or complaining about, oh, the economy. And I'm just a very, not just a solution kind of oriented person, but also positive mindset. What was your best day? If you felt good before, then you can overcome this feeling of the economy being so bad or the weather being so hot. You just got to find a way to navigate it. Yeah, emotions are definitely a part of us, but we have to combine it with the environment and balance the two.
I just want to say that men, they are a different species, the animal kingdom almost, the head lion in charge. And a lot of
Mm.
them are literally raised to suppress their emotions, and women are raised to express emotions. And we're living in a society now where if a woman stands up for herself or uses her voice, she's deemed aggressive and bitter or whatever the negative connotation it is towards it. But that's literally just who women are. We are literally raised because we're the nurturers, we're the givers, and we're the child barriers. So that's literally just a woman's DNA for her to show emotions and be passionate about what she believes in and fight for what she believes in. So that was a great way of explaining literally the difference between the men and the women, because they're raised to suppress their emotions, and women, we just trained to express it. So can we talk about a specific moment or a conversation or an experience or a realization even that made you challenge the traditional language and system surrounding healing and mental health?
Oh, I'm very big on language because language is a form of expression, right? And my own journey, the way I describe it is language is to communicate with other people. Silence is for the soul. The second that we can be in silence, it's like we're in tune with who we are. And that's when we're always connected to the greater power. We are connected. I've had experiences that you can't deny that there's something greater than just humans, right? So then, because we do know that humans have at the best of all, like we can communicate with each other and we can find a way to communicate with animals, right? But if you think of a dog, it's loyal because it's been trained to be that way, right? It's been trained to be that way. But in my analogy of it, if I was going to have a dog, I wouldn't have a dog just to be loyal to me and love me. I would want to love it back too. I would want to, like, why would I just want to take the love from the dog, right? And that's my problem. I don't have a dog because I'm not like owner. Like I couldn't be the dog mom like that. So I don't have a dog. Back to your question. What was it? Can you just go back to it again?
Yeah. Was there a specific moment, conversation, experience, or realization that made you challenge the traditional language and system surrounding healing and mental health?
Okay, so just by looking at my appearance, you can probably tell that there's another language that I have. There are words for every little thing. And I grew up with a father who is quite intelligent and he taught me about acronyms. And so he would make acronyms about things. And my dad said, like Santa Claus, for example, right? We all believe in Santa Claus. If you mix up the letters in Santa, it's Satan. And then if you mix up the letters in Claus, it's Lucas, which is Lucifer. And he says, and Santa's in red, and he gives you gifts. And interpret it as it's joyful, right? To give, whether it's physical or not, it's a joyful thing to give. And it's a joyful thing to receive when somebody puts their thought into it, like when it's sentimental and it's a thoughtful gift, it's which is the planet that we live on. If you mix up all the letters, you get the word heart, because earth is about living with heart. And then if you take the word heart, the middle three letters are ear. To get to your heart, you have to open your ears, right? We're beautifully designed. One of my books is called Take Time to Be Abrupt. And I take abrupt, but I break down every letter. It's about being direct and it's about how to do it with a bit of mindfulness and with a bit of compassion. And so that's one of my books. I use abrupt. It's about balancing your logic with your emotions. It gets men in touch with their emotions, but I find like some women, we can be so sensitive if we've been allowed to be sensitive or we haven't been allowed to express ourselves or we've always been received well. So you can go to work and you'll be upset if the boss didn't say good morning. And I lived in an environment where some of the girls would be upset because the boss didn't say good morning and it was a guy. And I'm thinking, guy or girl, it doesn't matter. It's not his responsibility to make your day good by saying good morning. And if he came in here morning, if he feels it genuinely, that's good that he's passing. But if he's projecting like he has to do it, it's like forceful. So having been in an environment like that, I came up with that acronym because I thought we shouldn't take it personal. If somebody doesn't say good morning, maybe it's about their morning. Maybe we could always say good morning to them. We all have connections and we're all connected, like they say that you might not feel love, but there is one person out there that truly does love you and thinks of you, and you might not believe it. But every time something happens to someone, it can be a stranger to me, but it's somebody that was loved by someone else. So I have two books that I've published, and I'm working on a third. I'll give you two examples. And so I change it to energy's sake. It's for energy's sake. It's about the energy that the thoughts that the being sake. That's what it's about. When you make it about name, that taps into ego, because people think my name is important, then I'm important. So that's how I dissect language. And so that's one example. Another one is survival mode. We're all in survival mode. We've all been through something. It's about, when you're surviving, what are you surviving? Are you surviving life? Are you surviving against everybody else? Because survival mindset, it's a very competitive mindset. It's, I matter, and I'm going to stand my ground because I matter, and there's the common thing where survivor to thriver, where you take that survive and you thrive with it. The whole thing for me is, if I'm in a traumatic situation, it's not about surviving the situation. It's about, for me, sustaining my character while I'm in it. Because if I become a survivor, then I'm thinking that everything is out to hurt me. But it's about knowing who I am and sustaining myself. So I always reflect, and I always go back to, alcohol is one of my coping mechanisms. But I always go back to the time when I didn't drink, and I think of that girl that never drank and how she felt and how she would channel things and stuff. And she didn't need to survive. She just always wanted to be herself. The survival, the survivor, the word I hear, even spiritual gurus that I love, like David Guillaume, for example. I love him. I think it's amazing what he's doing. But then there's some things he says and it doesn't sit right with me. He talks about unconditional love, and no, we are not wired to be loving people unconditionally. How can we love somebody unconditionally? We can't. If somebody murdered your loved one, you're not going to love them. You can forgive them. You can move past it, but you're not going to love them. So this language, it's evolved. And then people just stick to it. And it's just to break that down to the wire. And I don't want people to accept my view. I want people to challenge me and say, but like, what about this? Because that's how I grow, is when you challenge me, right? Because people do understand where I'm coming from, and it resonates with a lot of people. And that's why they feel like when they talk to me, it's a judgment-free zone. But I've had to taper myself down to not be so literal, because I understand people use language as a way of communicating. They're not really listening to the words that they're speaking. And to me, words are energy. So when you say survivor, you are actually making yourself isolated from society because you're surviving life. You should be navigating through life, enjoying life, being a part of it, not trying to survive it.
But again, through faith and through my belief in God, I knew he literally had me go through that for a reason. Instead of literally just running away from society, I can put my story out here, or let's go out here and communicate and try to find other people and inspire them to keep going, because that is survival mode and everybody has their own definition of it. There's literally not a one-way street to it. It's literally based off of you, the language you understand, and we all have cultural differences and things like that. Faith, lived experience, intuition, and curiosity all seem to be woven into your work. How have these different elements worked together in your own healing journey?
I'm not curious about why things happen. Once we're connected, or even if we're not, we do have the power to change our circumstances. It's about how we perceive situations, right? So my faith has been the greatest thing ever. And that's all, again, thanks to my father, who had taken me to the temple that we were introduced to. They refer to it as a mission, not a religion. And one of the things they used to say was, religion unites, never divides. And we were part of a camp, and I don't know if you know what Sevadal means, but Seva, it's an act of selfless service. So giving for the love of giving, not for what you receive back, not for anything, but for the love of giving, not because you've been guilted into it. So we used to be part of this camp called a Sevadal camp. And I remember we are Sevadal. And it was like, we would march, we would do a bout turn, we would do all these army moves and things. And it was experience then, and it was quite fun because we were all doing it together. But it was so serious, and it was so fun because afterward we were camping out, so we'd have a fun time, like we'd play games and stuff like that. And I always reflect back on that, and I think like how that has conditioned me to, I believe in selfless service, and it's one of the three pillars in Sikhism as well. Seva, which is selfless service; Simran, which is praying, connecting to the source, and satsang, which is congregation, and congregation of people that are connected to. I don't just want to congregate with people and we talk about, oh, which jewelry did you buy? Oh, wow, God. Oh, what movie did you watch? I can have those conversations too, right? But I don't want to be in those conversations all the time. I want to have a bit of depth to my conversations. So satsang is crucial, like the congregation around people that to keep yourself connected. So I think without my faith, nothing would have been possible because all my lived experiences, the second you ask a question to the greater power, to yourself, you internalize it, you ask it out loud, whatever question it is, the gifts will come to you. And sometimes I get gifts and I experience things and I say, God, like I say, God, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be put in this place. I didn't want to go through this. So there's still experiences that I question, like, why was I hospitalized? And then I always go back and I'm like, if my marriage would have worked out and if I would have stayed, I would have been just loving up on my husband and loving on my kids, and I would have been so family oriented. I would not have put any effort into writing. I would not have even known who I was, right? It's just like, I don't ever think I would have found myself until my kids grew up, and then it would be about them getting married and them having babies. It's all about, we need something to happen to make my life more fulfilling. So I feel like what God definitely did for me, and I feel like God does this for a lot of people, when you truly do love, God takes it away like that. That's it. The second you let your heart and your soul in, God takes it away. And then you get angry. Why would you do that, God? I love so hard. And you just take it away. And God wants our love too, right? So don't forget that God, for me, it's just an experience and the ability. I went on ChatGPT because I questioned myself a lot, right? So this is one thing that I learned is that God is love, right? And love is a feeling. Some people make love into a duty, but it's a feeling. Love is a feeling. It's when you accept someone wholly, you understand them, you will give to them of yourself because you want to, not because anything's it's just love. Love flows, and it's really hard to define the word love because it's a feeling, and it's a feeling that carries through, and God is love. And the thing is, with if God is love, this is what ChatGPT, because I question it, because I try to understand it myself. So this is the narrative that I've got that gets me through challenging times. If God is love, and God love created this whole existence, it's shaped by love, and then we get torn from love, we get put in places of hurt and pain, then love can cease to exist, right? But when you get up and you're like, I'm going to go and love again, right? I'm going to get my heart broken again. I'm going to go and love again. That's when love is real. We make God real because we choose to love after we've been broken. And so that's how we know it's real. When you dwell on the pain and you're focusing on the pain, some people don't have the ability to get back up and risk life again, to love again. But the feeling of love is so wholesome. It's worth the pain for me. And I think that for me is my whole faith now, since I've learned it. It's, yeah, how can love be real when you put your heart on the line and you're willing to lose control, you're willing to let go, you're willing to just accept everything, right? Because we can't control when people are going to leave us in an instant. You talked about your dad, I talked about my cousin. We can't. We just have to love every day, and then we grieve. That's a form of love, right? And love just exists, and it's just phenomenal how it exists. Yeah, I feel like I've been shaped a lot by all of these things, and they all do intertwine, but my curiosity is definitely something that I'm working on.
Absolutely. And again, like, I was that person as well, of where I went through losing my dad, feeling guilty about that, then being bullied in school after that, to going through all the other things that I went through, even my suicide attempt. And I was just the whole time asking why. Whole time going back to faith and just getting into believing. And again, y'all, we're not pushing religion on you or anything like that. We're just giving you our own personal stories, and how faith literally has kept us here is one of those things where God starts to identify the reason why I had you to go through that, because there's a saying, God gives the hardest battles to his toughest soldiers. And the reality of it is, everybody is chasing purpose. And that was the reason why Jesus came, because he was chasing purpose. So in order to get to the purpose God has for you, you sometimes have to go through a lot of things. And there is a scripture that said God is always close to the brokenhearted. In those moments of where you're feeling like you can't love, you are being loved, and you're being loved by a higher power. And that higher power will eventually show you why you had to go through that. And I'm telling you, most times it's because he's about to send you on a journey to a community to help them overcome exactly what you just went through. I think if a lot of people switch to that mindset of there has some reason in what I'm going through, a lot more people would not be afraid to love. A lot more people wouldn't be afraid to step into that new season of their lives. But again, it's a step at a time, and everybody has their own way. But that's why me and Miss, am I saying it right, Harjeet?
Yes.
That's why me and Miss Harjeet are here today giving you our own personal stories, because it takes time. And me and her have been going through it ever since we were young girls, and we're grown women now with our own kids. It is of teaching your kids the things and teaching and going to the community that God has for you. So again, I thank you for sharing your faith with us, because I am a God-fearing person who went through that same thing of asking, why did I go through all this? Why do I have to be the one that ends up as a single mother? Why do I have to be the one that didn't follow that path of getting married first and things like that? And it was a reason behind it. And sure enough, I'm out here helping single mothers and putting them on and their business and their brands. And I met so many different people. And it's literally because I was obedient and stayed true to my faith and believing that I had a reason behind everything I was going through. So if you're looking for some encouragement today, there you go. Now, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said I love it.
Now let's talk about, because this is something I've done myself and you do it often as well. You challenge commonly accepted beliefs, which can be, again, uncomfortable for everybody in the room. Have you faced resistance when sharing your ideas, and how do you stay grounded in your message?
It's the death of a union. It's a grieving process in itself. And I felt like everything was working against me. The love that I felt so wholeheartedly was ripped apart from me. And yeah, I forgot the question.
Hold on, let me see. You challenge commonly accepted beliefs. Have you faced resistance when sharing these ideas, and how do you stay grounded in your message?
So I'm very active in communicating, right? So I'm not a physical fighter. I just have a lot of love inside of me. And so the thing is, when I do tend to drink, it helps me step into my body. Not that I come out with my fists, but I'm like, now I'm more vocal because I'm more protective of my body and my physical space. Because on a whim, I'm just wishy washy. It's okay. Some people just are so familiar with how they feel and how they react to situations that they don't want to tap into this. They're just afraid. And fear is something that will hold you back, right? It will hold you back. And so the resistance that I feel are from the people that are afraid. They're afraid of tapping into something that they don't understand, right? They're afraid of, most people are afraid of loneliness and abandonment. I'm afraid of being in a situation where I can't be myself, being trapped in an environment where I have to be obedient, because I don't believe that we should be obedient. Because if somebody says to you, sit down there, sit down if it feels right and it feels like it's coming from a good place. But, I have all the authority to challenge that. First of all, why do you want me to sit there? I don't feel good about sitting there, and I'm not going to put myself through discomfort for your benefit, right? Who are you trying to benefit at this point? Are you trying to benefit yourself, or are you trying to benefit the greater good of people, right? I face a lot of resistance because of who I am, and I can make people feel very uncomfortable because they challenge me for who I am and why I don't have my kids. One guy said to me, as a mother, isn't it your instinct to protect your children? And I thought, yeah, you're all fair for you to say that, yes, but what am I protecting? I'm not going to protect them from their father. Their father hurt me. Him and I had this, but my children love their father. Why am I going to protect them? And even if I think it's a negative kind of love or coercion, whatever I think and feel, my children are entitled to have that bond and that connection. And decide what kind of relationship they want, what kind of love soothes them, right? Some people, they operate well when they're guilted, when they're shamed, when they're projected on. They operate. Some people need a punishment to be disciplined, but it's not one shape fits all, right? So I recognize that, right? And so when my daughter says little things like, "Oh, I need to be punished," and she's so hard on, she's 7 years old and she's so hard on herself, and I'm like, no, you don't need to be so hard on yourself. But I recognize that something's ingrained in her, right? I don't know where she gets it from because I'm far from that. And so the resistance that I feel, I recognize it's not about me. It's about their preconceived notions of how they view life. It's not, it's never personal, really. And when it is personal, you'll know. If somebody's trying to bring you down because they're trying to bring you down to their level, they're trying to connect with you. That's why they're trying to bring you down, because they can't get up there. They don't know how to get up there. And they're afraid to get up there because
Absolutely.
they don't know they won't recognize themselves, right? And every day they'll be waking up, who am I today? I don't know. So the resistance is not, it's not about me, and I recognize that, but it's there.
Yeah.
And go on, sorry.
But yeah, and you are absolutely right when it comes down to people that aren't scared to stand in their power and just be themselves. It can offend or intimidate a person who is afraid. And that's a great point that you just made, because often when we do face resistance, it normally, not, I'm going to be the person to go all the way out there and say 99.9% of the time, that resistance that you're feeling from that other person is because you probably just revealed something within that person that they did not want somebody to see. And so they literally take out their own opinions on your life and your light and what you're doing, and oftentimes addressing the elephant that's in the room. And you may not even necessarily be talking about that person. You just have it on you, and it's just something you're confident and firm in. And like for me, being in the mental health field, asking why are the clients set up like this, or why is the processing for people getting jobs set up this way for people with disabilities, that could easily trigger somebody who's been doing this for 20 years and just abiding by the system. When in reality, the system been broken for 10, and you just now been just working and dealing with it. But you got this new person coming in who you think don't know anything, and you're taking out your own personal fears out on this person. So I totally get it. And I've been in that situation so many times, from jobs to school, and people just looking at me like I'm crazy and I'm going through things like that. You have to stand firm. And another thing you hit on too, which a lot of men use as an excuse of, oh, the woman, she always get custody of the kids. If she doesn't, something's wrong with her. And that's not true. You will have to literally, again, my bachelor's degree is in criminal justice. So you would have to literally know the laws to know, or have been in the situation yourself to know that's not always the case. It's not always the most mentally stable parent that gets the child. It's not always the person who has the most money in the bank account. It's not always the mother that gets the custody of the child. And literally, you said it as well. Sometimes it's just based off of what the judge feeling that day. And we know judges can make mistakes as well, because they are humans.
Yes.
So a lot of times they do think that they're making a conscious decision, but haven't done all their research. And luckily, situations don't end up in a lot of tragedies. But, literally basing stuff off of emotions versus actually doing the research and actually taking the time to check in with yourself to make sure that you're not being biased towards situations is literally how we grow and systems heal. And that's how everything gets there. But those were great points, because they real deal think that the mother always gets custody, or if you don't have the custody, you're just a horrible mother, or you've done something to the children, when in reality that's just not the case. Sometimes it could be the judge, sometimes it could be lawyers, sometimes it could be just messed up paperwork, sometimes it could just be mismatches in court dates and rulings go certain ways because you miss court dates. It could be a million different things, y'all. So before you basically want to sit up and judge again, make sure you educated yourself, or at least have that lived experience to actually tell a different side of the story, in my opinion. How did your experiences with adversity reshape your understanding of personal responsibility, compassion, and healing?
Um,
So let's talk about you creating content. So you're creating content, you're also an author, as you just told us, and you're also building conversations in community spaces. What themes keep showing up in the stories people bring to you in these places?
oh, wow. One of the things I already mentioned is that the level of judgment that people have on others can influence who we become. And if we've made a mistake, we'll be punished for that same mistake because we'll be judged for it forever, right? When you're a kid, children are growing and developing, and then they're neglected by their parents. They're put in situations and they don't know how to go through that hurt and how to navigate it. And sometimes adults don't have the tools and the resources to understand children, right? So if a child goes off the rails, say, for example, just gets behind the wheel after an emotional day or after just drinking and being emotional, both, and then just having this level of I'm everything and I'm, you know what I mean, going on the road like that, and then you just hit someone and you cause a life-changing circumstance, you can't take that back. You can't bring a person back to life. You can't do that. It's impossible, right? And everybody's going to be hard on you for making that mistake. And they're going to be judgmental of you for making that mistake. It was just a mistake. And this is the thing is some people, they say criminals don't change, and some criminals won't. It doesn't matter. The more love you give them and the more support you give them, the more they get away with it, the more they'll do it, right? And then when they have their time away, they're learning how they can do that better when they get out, right? So not everybody is wired the same way, but if we allow our judgment to soften a little bit and just notice that we're all making mistakes, we're all navigating. Just because I haven't hurt anybody that much physically doesn't mean that somebody who else has done it never felt that remorse. They never felt, because some people, for example, there's this Indian truck driver who ran a stop sign and killed some students that were on a school bus. They were coming from a hockey game, and this was in Canada, and he was deported. I think he did time or whatever. I don't know the full story of what happened to him, but I think he did get deported, and he was very sad because he was here with his wife and he built a family up, and the parents of the victims forgave him, and they went and they even, one of them gave him a chain or something of their child as a memory. You're a child too, you're somebody's child too, right? And he didn't intentionally go out there, I'm going to kill some children today, right? And he's being deported for a mistake. And then when these things happen, like on social media, you read some of the comments, they're so callous. It's like he did it intentionally. And it's that kind of attitude that makes criminals. It's the fact that you think people hurt intentionally. It's what creates them and it's what keeps them there. I heard a story about this person was hiking and got picked up. And the person that picked them up, that person was telling the story. So they picked up a hitchhiker and they were talking to the hitchhiker, taking them where they want to go, and they had a lovely conversation. They gave the hitchhiker their number when they left, and they parted ways. And about a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, the person that had picked up the hitchhiker had a voicemail from the hitchhiker saying that that day when you picked me up, I was going to kill you. I was in a mood to kill you. I wanted to just hurt somebody, but you were so pleasant and your conversation was so nice that, like, I didn't. You changed me. So that's what we have to remember. We can influence, we can shape people just by how we perceive them. And if we perceive them like, oh, you're an alcoholic, or you're a serial killer, or you're this, you're that, sometimes, like I said, some people don't change. They're not capable of it. But the judgment that we have is going to keep them stuck in that box. There's no chance for them at all.
Great. Oh, I was just make sure you were done. But this conversation right here is single-handedly, I can literally make a whole nother episode on, because this is the real deal why you're commonly seeing people taking away funding from mental health services. Because listen to me, psychiatrists and psychologists, until y'all able to differentiate the criminal mind from an actual mental illness that's going towards healing mind, telling you, you're going to continue to see money being lost in mental health, because that is literally what's happening. You're literally continuously releasing habitual offenders, which is what it's called in the criminal justice field, of a person that just don't care to change. They don't care to heal. They don't care to, they're not like the guy who got into the accident with the kids, where it's just a tragic event and he didn't mean it. And again, he didn't wake up that day and say, hey, let me go kill a bunch of kids. So he's not literally like a school shooter who literally decides in their mind, hey, let me go shoot up a school. Now, I'm not saying every school shooter can't be rehabilitated through therapy and things like that, because often a lot of people are carrying mental illnesses and don't even know it because they're not diagnosed yet. But until psychiatrists and psychologists do that work when it comes down to differentiating a mental illness that's going towards healing versus a criminal mindset,
Yes.
the money is going to continue to be lost, y'all. And I'm telling you, that conversation right there has got me into a lot of trouble. And that's where I really hold a lot of resistance in dealing with counselors, because it's one of those things of, yeah, they come out of prison, but if I literally see that you still in that criminal mind, why am I going to put you in a building to work somewhere when I know all you're going to do is steal again?
Yeah, yeah.
Put you back into something that's literally going to tempt you to go back to jail, when in reality, you may just be that person that just going to continue to do it anyway. And now here you is sitting here wasting everybody's time and calling it a mental illness when it's not a mental illness. It's just something you decide to do. So
Yeah.
for my psychiatrists and my psychologists out there that are listening right now, that's y'all job. Get to work on and start releasing it to society, because I'm telling you, until y'all do that, y'all will continue to see money being lost in mental health. And honestly, I'm in agreement with it, because it's too many people out here on these streets, especially in my city, of where people literally have made the decision to continue to be a criminal and continue to hurt people. And you seeing innocent people like the guy who tragically killed kids on a bus being deported and being thrown in jail, and they'll never do something like that again. So again, y'all get to work. So we're getting closer to the end of today's episode, and I want to get some advice from you for a minute. For the people that may be listening and may feel misunderstood or mislabeled, what would you say to someone who feels like they've been defined more by their pain than their actual potential?
The pain, my pain is not your pain is not my pain, but pain is pain. If you feel like you're pained, you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to feel that you were wronged. You're allowed to feel that injustice was served. You're allowed to feel these things. You don't have to just be positive and say, oh, it's okay, it happened for a reason, whatever. Eventually, to heal, you have to kind of go through the motions. You can't just dwell on the injustice that was served. You can't just dwell on it, and you can't just keep trying to open people's eyes about the injustices, because even if people's eyes are open, they, like, you notice on social media, people have not been through certain situations and they're talking about other people's pain. Erica Kirk, for example, I'm not a big fan of hers, to be honest, but what she went through, who knows what her relationship with Charlie was like? I don't know. I wasn't there. And even people will say that she's supposed to grieve a certain way at the funeral, they're laughing or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you know that they had a motive, that they did it for the wrong reasons. But when you talk about grief, like when I grieve, I wouldn't want to just sob and break down crying in front of people. I don't want to do a performance of how much I'm grieving my loss. No, I want to contain myself, and I want to use that grief, that pain, to help other people heal. So I'll share exactly how I feel if I've lost someone, like my children. So this is, if I was talking to somebody about their pain.
So I want to ask you, as you continue writing and building this movement around emotional awareness and redefining language, what impact are you hoping to create?
That we all are a part of society and we all have to contribute, right? And I think the impact that I'm making, it's, let's talk about, I want to give an example, like Lady Diana, right? She wasn't Jesus Christ in a sense, but like to me, she was a goddess. She was pure, unfiltrated, like beautiful, like to a core of her being, just like Michael Jackson. Two people that I lived in their time, right? So I maybe just seen them on the TV, but just like I'm recognizing like how emotionally in tune I am and how emotionally aware I am. With Michael Jackson, like I would cry when he got accused of molesting. It made me cry, and I don't even know the guy, right? And people talk about his talents and how talented he is, and I'm thinking, no, man, do you know the size of his heart? And that's, and I don't even know him. So I was young. I was so young that how would I know that? Because I'm not there like reading articles and judging how people are. I didn't have the knowledge then that I have now. So I think I've always been like very in tune with empathy to that level of degree. Let's talk about those two people, right? So they made an impact, not by being somebody else, but just by being themselves, right? Lady Diana, oh my God, not that she was she was people's princess. Happily, that defines her, because what people don't like, I mean, they talk about who she was physically, like how she was beautiful and how she did humanitarian work, but she went to, like, she would touch people, physically touch people that had been diagnosed with HIV, right? She proved that, like, your diagnosis means nothing to me, right? Like, it means nothing to me. Who you are, I'm going to touch your soul. Like, she went and she touched people's souls. She's a mother. She was a prince. Like, she's there for the whole bloody world, man. Like, not just for England, but for everybody, she was there. And it's just, oh my God. And she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I don't know if you know that, but she was. And she challenged all norms. So in the royal family, you're not supposed to go to an event in a black dress, and she just went there with a black dress. And the thing is, this is all stuff that this is all information I've become privy to, not by I don't study her. I just love her, and I did when I was little. I remember the day she died. I was in the shower. My sister was getting married. And I was listening to my radio, and my sister comes, knocks on the door. Princess Diana's dead. Princess Diana's dead. It's like a bloody big deal. And I was like, what the? Like, you're running around, you're on your wedding day, and you're like talking about how she's dead. And I'm just like trying to comprehend what does that even mean? Like, how does that even affect me? And I didn't think that it would, right? But now I recognize like the impact that she has. And it's not because she wanted a name for herself. She was touching people's souls with the gift that she had, right? And I don't know if I could ever do it to that level, because my problem is physically, I don't want to be perceived. I'm navigating this for myself, is that people are visual creatures, especially men. So they look at you and they form a judgment, they form an opinion of you based on how you look, right? And the sad thing is, some people, we can't control how we look. Sure, you can put on makeup, right? But say if you're a burn victim, you've had an acid attack and your face was beautiful once, and then now you look different, and then people are just going to look at you and be like, of course, if I see somebody, I would look at them and I would be like, I would be cautious to ask them what happened, because I don't want to be offensive, right? So that would be more for me. I'm not going to judge you by how you look, but I am curious what happened, but I don't want to ask those questions because I recognize it could be a sensitive question to ask. So I just want to make the impact of people recognizing that we're all on the same journey. But we don't all have eyes and ears, right? Not everybody has been given the gift of sight, right? But we've all been given the gift of feeling. We can all feel. And that's one thing that will unite us all. When we recognize that we've all got that ability to feel, and we've got the gift of being able to think as well. Are we benefiting ourselves? Are we benefiting somebody else? Are we balancing the two? Because you can't just live life giving back to other people, but you can't live life just giving back to yourself either. You got to find the balance. Like Lady Diana, she took time for herself. And Michael Jackson, oh my God, such a remarkable human being. He used what he went through to protect children and keep them safe. But Land Ranch wasn't for him. It wasn't for him. It was for the children. And like when I saw an interview of him with his wife, Presley, Lisa Ann Presley, whatever her name was, and he's such a child himself, and how he would just laugh, and he doesn't have to be responsible because he's got the money, he's got the talent. But and people think he's living a life of luxury, but no, man, he was bullied. He was bullied when he was doing so much. And now I read comments online. Everybody knows he wasn't a child molester now. Now they know, right? People are like, oh, I used to think he was a child molester, but now I feel so bad that I even thought that. And it's so sad that people could put that into your mind, right? So I don't want people to trust so openly. And one word that I've learned for myself, love has no bounds for me, but we have to have boundaries, because if we don't, the people that are criminal minds will capitalize on that, right? And the majority of society has the love has no bounds. We live like that until we learn we have to make boundaries. A word that comes to me, and it's such an important word, and I think it's lost in translation, is discernment. And it's a word from the Bible, right? And it's not used enough in today's world, because discernment, you're only going to get discernment through experience, through lived experience, right? So what I've lived through, I can teach my children how to be more discerning. And one of the tricks I teach people on how to be more discerning is, in the beginning, when you meet somebody, it takes about 3 months for somebody's true character to come out. 3 solid, consistent months where you see them every day for their true character to come out. But one way you can challenge them is to say no to them. When they say so, even if you want to say yes, because you know how it feels when people say no and you want to say yes, just say no for the hell of it, because their reaction to your no is everything. And if the first time they're like agreeable, still do it again. Because eventually, when somebody doesn't accept your no, there's a bloody problem there, right? And so the impact I want to make to people is that, yeah, love is true, love has no bounds and all that stuff. Discernment is massive, because I don't think in terms of good and bad, right? But you nailed it when you said criminal minds. I would never know how to. There are a select few people that there's no way, shape, or form. give them a judgment-free zone, you give them all the love they need, you give them the punishments, whatever, they are not capable of becoming human. They're not. So instead of trying to become human, they will just tell everybody that all humans are people pleasers, all humans, we're all like this, we're all like, they will normalize themselves rather than do the work to fit in with the majority of society. They will try and get the majority of society to come to their level, right? Yeah, I just want to open people's minds up to that. We don't need to have tunnel vision. We don't need to see through our lens based on our lived experience. We have to recognize everybody has a lived experience. And I would even have compassion for somebody who's a cold, callous killer, honestly, because I do think that once you become a certain person, we're not born to do that, right? But once you become a certain person, you can't tap away from, you can't get out of it. If you were molested as a child, you can take it in two ways, right? You could use it as like, I was and I survived, so now I'm just going to do it to other people because it was normal, normalize it, right? But we know ethical, we know ethics, we've all got that moral compass, right? Because criminal minds, as you say, which is just, I could never define it because I don't want to do good and bad. It's not as clear cut as that, right? Criminal minds, they do stem from love. They were born out of love as well, right? But perhaps they weren't. Perhaps their mother was raped. Perhaps she was a victim of rape and they were a product of rape. Who knows, right? Perhaps they were pulled from their parents at such a young age that they're adopted and they don't even know. And so they never had that biological connection with their parents, right? There's so much that could have happened. But once they become a certain way, you can't navigate them back to their childhood because now they're just going to make excuses to justify who they are because that's how they are. I felt like when I was a child, I was never really heard. My word, like nobody wanted to listen. So I over and above try and include them and try and give them one-on-one attention. So yeah, so basically the impact I want to make is for people to like not be so tunnel vision. Like your view is your view, my view is my view. It's based on my lived experience, it's based on yours. But to step outside of your lived experience and imagine that you had their lived experience, right? So opening up people's minds in a way that they can become an impact themselves, right? Michael Jackson didn't do anything but dance on a stage, right? That's what he was known for, dancing and singing and being remarkably talented. He wasn't known as having the greatest gift of the hugest heart, right? Nobody knows him as that. Nobody thinks of him like that. They think of him as a talented man that was like remarkable to watch. Yeah, physically, he was very remarkable to watch. But on a feeling level, when you're so connected with your feelings, you can, and women, we have that. Have that gift from birth, right? Men, they have to step into their feeling, right? They don't, then they're born to just create order, structure, and just do things and function in society. So yeah, I just want you, I don't want to do things alone. I'm not alone, and I can make an impact with the people that I talk with and the people that I listen to and the people that I understand and the people I break out of the shell. When my time comes and I have no choice over where I go, and I don't know what that's going to be like for me, but all I can think about is the people that are left behind. And I never want anybody to feel left behind, feeling like I hurt them intentionally and there's nothing that they can do about it now, because I want people to come up to my face and have a conversation with me about how I hurt you. Let's resolve it now. Because when the time is done, the time is done. We can't resolve it then. And I don't want you to hold any grudges. Like, why would you hold a grudge, right? So I think I believe in spiritual and religion for sure, like scriptures, holy scriptures, like the Bible, the Guru Granth Sahib, the Quran, the Torah, all these holy scriptures. For me, I can't say the word of God because God uses us for words, right? God doesn't communicate in words. God is feeling, right? That's how we can communicate with God. That's what manifestation is, right? That's how we manifest. We feel that we already have, which is something that I do with my emotional and energetic translation work, is I open people up to manifesting what they need in this reality to survive, to get that. They have to tap into their feeling to manifest their reality. And we can manifest a physical reality and be void of feelings as well. But I want people to tap into their feelings and manifest it from a place of true connection and not from a place of ego, right? So I want these conversations to be had in common places. I want people to talk about the elephants in the room. And I hope that somebody will talk about an elephant and say, you know what? I remember this girl called Harjeet, and she would talk about anything and everything. And because of her, now I can talk about the elephant too.
Exactly. I I love how you explain that to our audience, because, and you use two great people to explain it, because Princess Diana and, of course, the legend and the king himself, Michael Jackson. Those are two people that, I don't care how old or how young you are, you know exactly who those two people are. And it's literally because of the impacts they both made. And I was a little girl at the time that Princess Diana passed away, so I didn't really understand until I was about 16, 17 years old, and what people were saying. The first thing that came to mind for me was, did she have any kids? And then I, of course, found out about Prince William and Prince Harry, and I could just, my heart pretty much just cried out for them, because they were so young at the time, and her being a mother and them having to grow up without their mother and constantly seeing it on TV who killed their mother and things, and all those conspiracy theories and things like that. I could only imagine the trauma they faced and gone through in life. And again, that MJ himself constantly being accused of molesting kids, and him building literally an entire world for kids to come and enjoy themselves, that I feel like is what really killed him, because he had that heart, that and background, where he had that background of where he grew up in abuse and bullied and things like that. And he literally took it and turned it into something that could be a peaceful and safe place for kids, and pretty much got taken advantage of. And that's literally what both of them had in common, was they had no boundaries. They literally did not put boundaries there that literally could protect them. And at the end of the day, it happened the way God planned it to. But at the same time, that is one thing that I did notice about them. They literally reach out to anybody and be of help to anyone that they met. And a lot of people say if they had those boundaries in place, they may still be here. But sometimes I say they probably still wouldn't, just because they had served their purpose. And that's literally what we only here to do, y'all. We only here to fulfill the purpose that our God has for us. And that may be a short time or a long time. A lot of people may want to live to 100, but if that's not literally in your cards, just remember you're here to fulfill your purpose. And after that, it may be time to go home. But you guys, we have literally reached the end of today's episode. But before we go, I want to make sure that we get all of Miss Harjeet. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
I want to make sure I get all of Miss Harjeet's information. Let us know the titles of your books, where to get them, and let us know all your socials and how to sign up for all your services. Let us know all the details.
Okay, and thanks to AI, because I have a very creative mind, but I didn't get writer's block because I would just punch in what I want to write, and I'd be say to AI, "This is what I want to say. This is what I want to write," and I know how it sounds. But can you just like, fix it, smooth it up for me? So my books are available on Amazon. One is called The Energy Awareness Guide, and the other one is called Take Time to Be Abrupt. So those are available on Amazon. I have a website as well. It's www.autumnlove.ca. AUTUMNLOVE.ca. So Harjeet D111 on Twitter, which I don't use much, but I'm there, right? And Threads and Instagram and Facebook and whatever, TikTok. I don't even use TikTok, but I'm on it. I'm on all of these platforms, and that's my handle on all of these platforms. Thankfully, I got my handle on all these platforms. And also what I've recently been doing on, which is a good place, or Facebook to follow me, because that's where I'm most active. I do these stories on Instagram. It's because as a mother, sometimes it cannot be as fulfilling as I want it to be, because it's not. I think sometimes I'm incentivized by people healing.
And I'm going to be leaving all that information down in the description box below. Thanks again to Emotional and Energetic Translator and author, Miss Harjeet, for coming on and sharing her story with us. And you be sure to leave us some comments down in that comment section on if today's message resonated. Also, if you like stories such as these, please hit that subscribe bell so you never miss whenever we upload. Until we meet again, keep your healing intentional, your boundaries solid, and that peace protected.